I was going back and forth whether or not I was going to talk about this or save it for a live stream, but I said, you know what? This has to have a video all to itself because it's actually pretty funny to me how you have a group of people that tells everyone else, especially black people, to not be sensitive, get out our feelings, to get over it and all this other stuff. Whenever we talk about oppression, want to come forth with their crap and want to be the ones to be protected when they feel like they're oppressed. And that's when we're going into another discussion involving Ron DeSantis, or as y'all hear me call him, Ron DeSatan. But I'm giving him another nickname, Ron the Snowflake. Now, we know that those who are especially very right-leaning love to throw around that term snowflake a lot, especially to those who are more liberal or left-leaning, or definitely subliminally towards those who are black. And Ron DeSantis is probably one of those people that has been known to use that word. But now we can see where the hypocrite nature comes into play with this story right here. So in case y'all have not heard, Ron DeSantis is pushing a bill in the state of Florida, where he's the governor, unfortunately, to shield white Floridians from quote unquote discomfort at school or their job. Basically saying that if you mention anything about the past and anything that they have done to oppress other groups of people, especially black people, that it's going to affect the person who's bringing it up rather than the person who it's intended for. It's basically another invincible bill to protect it's basically a bill to protect the feeling of white people. That's basically what it is. And the fact that this is even, let's hypothetically say this doesn't even pass, which I hope it doesn't, that it basically is saying that, one, they're trying to put into the minds of people that white people are indeed more oppressed than anybody else, even though they're the group that have been doing the oppression or the oppressing of other groups for so long, not just in America, but the entire world. But what it is also saying is that you cannot say anything about them. They're trying to give themselves even more protection than what they have. And many of them actually really feel like they're oppressed. It's a weird notion considering they're the ones that do all the oppressing. And basically what it's also saying is that they can go around and continue to do what they've always done and no one can throw it back at them. And they have the nerve to say that we're snowflakes. And by we, I'm talking about black people. I don't care what political leaning you have. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about black people in this instance. When black people talk about the stuff that's going on with us and who the true enemy is, we're called snowflakes, or we're saying we're too sensitive and other things. But with him and what he's trying to do with PC Floridians, oh, we got to shield them. We got to protect them from, the truth. See, the truth, like this saying goes, the truth does hurt, and it does hurt them. It hurts them to its core. And this is exactly what he's doing or plans to do. But Ron DeSantis, in my opinion, I've always said that he's like the second coming of 45. It's no secret that he's trying to be like him, but in my honest opinion, I think he's trying to surpass him. I think he has gone beyond whatever 45 could ever do. And mind you, he's just the governor. So imagine if he ran for president. But I'm going to go ahead and read this article that's coming from the Associated Press that was posted on January 19, 2022. A bill pushed by Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis that would prohibit public schools and private businesses from making white people feel discomfort when they teach students or train employees about discrimination in the nation's past received its first approval Tuesday. I don't know how many approvals it's supposed to get. Hopefully this article will explain it. The Senate Education Committee approved the bill that takes aim at critical race theory. No wonder they approved it. And I don't know why they keep talking about it like critical race theory is taught in regular schools. Critical race theory is a college level course. It's like, what do they not understand about that? But see, the thing is, they have to get ahead of this before CRT makes its way into the schools. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get ahead of it. But here's the thing. CRT doesn't even have to be something taught in schools. It's just basic history. But see, they always try to rewrite it. They are trying to remove the part of history that they have contributed to in a very negative way, which is a very good chunk of their history. But if it's anything good, they'll leave that in. So anything that they've done to oppress black people or them other groups, they don't want that in there. They don't want that mentioned. And to bring that up to them, now it's going to be like, it's a bill that could turn into a law. Imagine you getting a fine because you told them that their ancestors own your ancestors. Oh, that's a fine. Like, I'm just throwing that out there, but that could actually happen. Though it doesn't mention explicitly on party lines with Republicans in favor and Democrats oppose. Democrats argue the bill isn't needed. Sorry about the pause, but for some reason the article that was open, for some reason the piece of the article was missing and I had to go out and go back in. But let me continue. Democrats argue the bill isn't needed, would lead to frivolous lawsuits, and said it would amount to censorship in schools. They asked without success or real life examples of teachers or businesses telling students or employees that they are racist because of their race. This bill's not for blacks. This bill was not for any other race. This was directed to make whites not feel bad about what happened years ago, said Senator Chevron Jones, who is black. At no point did anyone say white people should be held responsible for what happened. But what I would ask my white counterparts is, are you an enabler of what happened? Or are you going to say we must talk about history? And I'm glad they brought that up, because you have a lot of PC people out here that will say, oh, I wasn't a slave owner. You weren't a slave. What happened in the past happened in the past. I had nothing to do with it. But when you do this right here, it's making that statement look very sketchy, because you're literally trying to run from your past. And see, the thing is, they are going to do this so their feelings don't get hurt. But at the same time, they're going to still push their PC ideology on you, basically their PC lies. See, that's the thing. They don't want the truth to be told. They don't. That's why I be laughing at them sometimes when they talk about censorship and everything like that. And here you have a governor, a PC governor down in Florida, doing the exact same thing that they always like to complain about. That's why I cannot take Dub as seriously. DeSantis held a news conference last month in which he called critical race theory crap and said he would seek legislations that would allow parents to sue schools and employees to sue employers if they were subject to its teachings. Critical race theory is a way of thinking about America's history through the lens of racism. It was developed during the 1970s and 80s in response to what scholars viewed as a lack of racial progress following the civil rights legislation of the 1960s. It centers on the idea that racism is systemic in the nation's institutions and that they function to maintain the dominance of white people in society. Conservatives reject it, saying it is a worldview derived from Marxism that divides society by defining people as oppressors and oppressed based on their race. That's exactly what they did and are still doing. The fact that they came up with the social construct that is known as race, that is all it is right there. That's why many of them say, oh, I don't see race, or race isn't everything, skin color isn't everything. They say all of that. But when the moment arises where skin color does factor into something, they'll be right at the front line with their sign in tow telling you race is everything. Skin color does matter. After all, wasn't it Megyn Kelly that said a couple years ago on Fox News when she used to work over there that Santa Claus is white, and they asked her, why do you think that it's white? Because it is. She didn't have a reason as to why Santa Claus is right. Keep in mind, Santa Claus is not even real, but in her mind it is. And if he isn't real, in her mind he's white because she says it is. So they see race. Don't let them play that game on you and say that they don't. They do. They see it when they want to see it, or whenever it benefits them. They don't see it when it doesn't benefit them. They call it an attempt to rewrite American history and make white people believe they are inherently racist. The bill reads in part, an individual by virtue of his or her race or sex does not bear responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex. An individual should not be made to feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of his or her race. The bill is called Individual Freedom. Republican Senator Manny Diaz, its sponsor, said it's not about ignoring the dark parts of American history, but rather ensuring that people are not blamed for sins of the past. See, he messed up with that part. He said it's not about ignoring the dark parts of American history. When you do that, it is, because in order to talk about the dark parts of history, you would have to bring up the role in which white people played in it. And see, that's that guilt that comes in. See, the thing is, we don't even have to be specifically talking about the PC people of today. We're talking about their ancestors of the past, but they don't even want us talking about that. So it is ignoring the dark parts of history, and they contributed to them dark parts, but they don't want people to know. And see, the thing is, they feel like we got to nip this in the bud now, so when future generations come along, it'll already be set in stone. I'm telling you, it's getting to that point where they want to make it against the law to teach about race in this establishment, in the role that the people who contributed to it the most played their part in this. The bill is, I already read that part. Though individual is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously, socially, by the virtue of his or her race or sex, Diaz said, no race is inherently superior to another race. They keep telling themselves that. I'm surprised he didn't hit us with the MLK line, considering the timing of when this article got released. Jones said DeSantis is playing to his conservative base by pushing the legislation, but wouldn't go so far as to say DeSantis himself is racist. Oh, this dude is very racist. Come on now. Let's not try to pretend that he ain't. The governor will continue to go across the country with his racist rhetoric on critical race theory. It's a problem that doesn't exist, Jones said. I think the governor policies that he continues to push are racist. Asked for comment, the governor's spokeswoman reiterated comments DeSantis made at a news conference last month in which he referred to the late civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr. There it is. Didn't I just say I'm surprised they didn't mention MLK in this article? And what happened a few sentences later? They mentioned Dr. King, and I'm very certain the quote I'm going to read, they use it in a very bastardized way, as they usually and always do. DeSantis said at the time, you think about what MLK stand for. Here it comes. He said he didn't want people judged on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. Their favorite line. You listen to some of these people nowadays, they don't talk about that. Ron DeSantis, you don't even practice what you preach, and you don't practice what that line says. Because I'm willing to bet that if this was a black person who tried to shield black people from oppression, from people like Ron DeSantis and his ilk, Ron DeSantis would be one of the ones that be going against the grain, and his ilk in tow, saying that it's somehow morally wrong and that we need to be a more blended society and to stop being so divided. They talk out of both sides of their neck. And that was the end of the article. And of course, they end the article on an MLK quote from Ron DeSantis in which he bastardized it. Typical. PC, I just want y'all to know, whenever you use a quote by Dr. King, us black people over here, at least those of sound mind and sanity, know what you're doing. Not even what you're trying to do, what you're doing. And it doesn't work. Thank God we have people like Professor Black Truth and the Black Authority who did a very good breakdown of the real Dr. King and what he really stood for. I just hate that they bastardized that man's image like that, and for so long, especially at a time when he was hated a lot by people like a Ron DeSantis at that time. But they love to pull that out of their ass. That's the only part of the speech that they talk about. Now I agree with that poll that I did about a month ago, where I was saying maybe it wasn't a month ago, maybe it was a couple weeks ago, when I was talking about which quote or which speech gets misused and misquote and abused, and people overwhelmingly said MLK's I Have a Dream speech, because every time MLK Day comes around, here they come using and misusing that quote every single time. Even when the family said, please do not use that quote or bastardize it, because even the family knows what they do when they say that, and they don't even mean it. They don't even mean it. But like I said, this Ron DeSantis, this is the person that some people want to be president. Keep in mind what he's doing right now in the state he's the governor of. Imagine him on a level where he's the president of an entire nation. And the fact that this got its first approval, this bill that's being pushed that got its first approval, that's saying something. It's not a good thing, but it's saying something. That you have people who feel that they're being oppressed while they've been the oppressor for hundreds of years. Make it make sense.